Most of us understand that if you really want to help learners pick up a skill and develop the right habits, you have to get them practicing hands-on. So the activities that we typically use in e-learning, like multiple choice quizzes, aren't really enough to get people to build the right reflexes. That's understood. And luckily, AI is about to make it a whole lot easier to build simulations where the learner practices in a virtual environment, but these can often include a whole bunch of details that can distract the learner from the relevant task and take you down a whole bunch of rabbit holes of tweaking. So more than ever, it's essential that we know how to identify the exact right level of detail in our learning activities, the middle ground between overly simplistic knowledge checks and bloated full-on simulations. We want activities that develop habits and reflexes hands-on, but are also on point and quick and easy to build in e-learning. This is what we call the minimum viable activity. Your MVA is close enough to the real world that it builds the relevant skills, but it's simple enough that you can build it in one afternoon. And bonus, the right MVA will be engaging to the learner because it's hands-on. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to identify your minimum viable activity based on your content so you can get results and engagement without spending a week building it. My name is Mary Jo. I'm a former video game producer, and now I help instructional designers gamify their training. If you're endlessly second-guessing yourself when you're trying to make your courses more engaging, then you might want to check out my program where I coach you step-by-step through a framework that you can use for any content. So check out the link below where you can grab a free consulting call with me. And now let's find your minimum viable activity. So what we're trying to do here is take a real-world situation, a real-world task, and extract only the most essential components to train learners on and cut out all the details. And when it comes to essential components, yes, we often talk about observable behaviors, but those can sometimes be hard to capture in e-learning. If the behavior is dealing with an angry customer, it can be hard to simulate coming up with the exact right words on the fly and delivering those with the exact right tone, voice, and body language. That's not a minimum viable activity in e-learning, and that's why we often default to things that are far too removed from reality. So the true minimum viable element isn't the observable action, it's what happens in the learner's brain before they perform that observable action. We want to identify what mental actions they need to go through in order to solve a problem, which is what leads them to the correct behavior that we observe. And those internal mental tasks are what we want to get them to practice in e-learning, and all of that can be done without all the details of reality. For example, let's say the task is to estimate how many barrels of corn this field will produce at harvest. Someone who knows how to do this in real life isn't picking between pre-made options in their head. They're quickly estimating how big the field is, how much rain it got, and if any events happened like a disease or a cold snap. Those are the mental actions that go into that task, but when e-learning asks them to pick between options, we're skipping over all that. Picking an option only mimics how you'll express your answer once you've done the actual mental work, which is the important thing here. That's why you have to find the right mental actions to practice, and in order to do that, there are 3 traps you need to avoid. Trap number 1 is if you're teaching a soft skill like dealing with an angry customer, people will often see that and default straight to a branching scenario because dealing with a customer involves dialogue, and branching scenarios are a common way to show dialogue. But again, the dialogue part is only how you express your answer in that situation. Maybe the most important mental action they need to do is to pinpoint the customer's exact problem, or evaluate their anger level, or apply a set procedure in order. I don't know, it all depends on the desired behavior that you're teaching, but one thing's for sure, the right mental action in real life is not to pick out of a set of prepackaged responses. So when we see a dialogue situation and we immediately think branching scenario, that's thinking in templates, and that's trap number 1. We also end up with branching scenarios so often because in real life people are constantly making decisions, and decisions mean branches, so branching scenario. But again, we focus on the endpoint decision here and we skip over all the analysis that goes into that decision, which means what we're doing is actually training people to be better at taking tests even when they're presented as branching scenarios. What you're doing in a branching scenario is to pick out of options, so that's what you're learning. And sure enough, we're all excellent at it. You can often guess the right answer even if you skip the course and even if you skip the question itself. Try this next time you're given a quiz. Just looking at how the answered choices, not the question, just the choices and how they're worded, that's often enough for you to get it right, and that's rarely the correct mental action. Which leads us to the final trap, which is defaulting to recall. Most of the time, what people need to do in real life is not successfully answer a question about something. Unless you're teaching them how to pass pass a test like an SAT, just being able to repeat the information is usually not the goal. The goal is what you do with that information. So if you're ever thinking the mental action is to recall information, ask yourself if that's really the end of it. Most of the time it's not. Most of the time recalling the information is the first step in doing something with that information. Okay, now let's find the right mental action step by step. The first big hint is that you're looking for mental actions that are really simple. Things like put elements in the right category, or evaluate, where the learner has to come up with a number, a grade, or a crop yield. Any judgment, estimation, or appraisal task is an evaluation task. Or apply an if-then rule. Prioritize, recognize, identify, and yes, sometimes recall. Always look for really simple actions. And of course, real-world tasks are complex, so to find your mental actions, you need to break down the desired behavior into its components until you reach the level of simple mental actions. This is like action mapping in a way, but it's more detailed. You dig way deeper. For example, let's say we have a toy store that offers free shipping, but they want to keep shipping costs down, so the clerk has to decide if packages will be sent at rush speed, standard, or economy. And you need to decide this fast, like 50 packages in 10 minutes with 90% accuracy. At face value, this looks like simple categorization because they just choose a shipping speed between 3 options. But there's a whole lot of mental activity that needs to go into making that right call. In our case, the store policy is the bigger the parcel, the slower you send it. So they have to figure out if the parcel is large, medium, or small. And let's say that breaks down into 2 components, weight and volume. Large means anything over 10 pounds and bigger than 7,000 cubic inches. Small is less than 2 pounds and smaller than 300 cubic inches, and medium is anything that ticks one but not both of these boxes. So I've isolated 2 simple actions, evaluate weight and evaluate volume. I'm going to teach each one separately, putting each one through introduce, practice, and assess, and then I'll combine them. The weight part is really simple. The weight is right there on the box, so I just start by giving them the categories and get them to practice being fast enough so that they're not really thinking about it. I could even take away the category definitions eventually, but if they have this information in real life, you can leave it. Volume, on the other hand, is an estimation task. I probably don't want people pulling out a ruler and measuring length, width, and depth, so I might give them a quick heuristic like bigger than a microwave, that's large. Smaller than a loaf of bread, that's small. And then I make them practice that to build up speed. And once they have both of these things down pat, then I combine them. If either of these things are true, it's considered large and gets shipped slow. And this combined activity can also have its own path of practice where I would gradually increase things like number of parcels they need to sort, or decrease the number of time allotted and the number of mistakes allowed. So now I have a simple set of activities to train the learner on this. Now, would it be easier for me to just simply teach them the equation to find volume? Yes, no doubt it would, but that would just be knowledge. It wouldn't really train the learner to get more skilled at this in a way that actually transfers. Not to mention, it's more boring for them, and we're not showing them how relevant that knowledge is to the real world. So we need to go beyond knowledge, but that doesn't mean needing to recreate reality in all of its fine detail. You just need to recreate the learner's thinking process and make them practice that. And once you start thinking this way, it becomes a lot easier to know what to build. Instead of starting from the usual templates, you start looking for mental patterns like estimation, categorization, prioritization, etc. Then you take each of these operations, you isolate, practice, and assess each one, then you combine them into the more complex task. That's your minimum viable activity. If design thinking is important to you and you want a systematic framework for creating hands-on training without endlessly second-guessing yourself, you should check out my program at the link below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.